Business Takeout presents
The Cocktale Hour with L.A. Wade.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cocktale Hour. I'm your girl, L.A. Wade, and this is where we have sobering yet intimate conversations about the things we thirst for in life, in business, and of course, in my heart. And this is very close to my heart. But before I tell you about my heart today, because she's right beside me, I have to tell you about Business Takeout that presents the Cocktale Hour. It is a social enterprise that works to empower Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship. And nobody does that better than my guest today, the legendary Trey Anthony. And I wish I had a studio audience because I know that I would be hearing an applause. You know, you gotta clap for yourself sometimes. Yes, big up yourself, big up yourself. I said in my post today that we were here to talk the things them. And I only in researching this show that I realized I learned that term from you.
Oh, well, thank you. There you go. There you go. Okay, I better trademark it.
Yes, talk the things them. It's so much a part of me finding my voice. So I want to ask you the first question. How did you find your voice?
Wow. I think it's something where I continue to find my voice, right? It's not one thing that is fully set. And I'm like, because there's sometimes I'm like, my God, you should have said something. And then there's other times where I'm like, Trey, you should have just shut your damn mouth. You should know when to be silent and when also to talk up. But for me, I think I've always been the kind of kid, if you ask my grandmother or my mother or anyone in my family, they will be like, she always had something to say. Like my nickname growing up was Parrot, right? And it was because my uncle said she's always got something to say, or she's going to repeat something, or she's going to ask why. And I just always have been that person where if something, and I think maybe it's the Aquarian in me, if something doesn't feel right, I'm going to say that actually is not correct, or I'm not understanding why we're doing this. Please explain this.
Please explain it. Yes, I think I had the similar experience because my mom is very Catholic, and I'm very spiritual. So when she would tell me, when I grew up understanding the context of Catholicism, I was like, something just feels like a little hypocritical here. I don't know. There's something in my throat that I need to clear. So I would always ask questions too. And
exactly.
It's funny because I'm looking at you and I'm hearing you talk and I'm remembering that in this, I'm having like this aha moment right now live. So sorry for all you people, but I have to digress for a second. That a lot of who I am and me finding my voice, I feel like you gave me permission to do that. I'm realizing it in this moment as I was a huge The Kink in My Hair fan when it was on stage. So like when this is the first thing that you did.
It was. Oh my gosh. Of course, now I'm losing my voice.
You can't lose your voice. I rebuke you. Come out of our truck.
I'm like a smoker and I don't smoke. It's funny, people say The Kink in My Hair is the first thing that I did. I would say to people it's the first thing that I was known for, that went mainstream. But for many years before The Kink in My Hair came about, I was doing comedy shows, sketch comedy shows called platform comedy shows at the Harborfront Center. And we were an urban comedy troupe. So we were kind of like the Mad TV in living color.
Stop it.
Yes.
You got to bring that back.
Yes. So that is really where I started. So by the time I produced The Kink in My Hair at the Fringe Festival, I had already built my urban audience, and that audience who was used to seeing me in comedy then came to see me at The Kink. And so that's why The Kink became so popular. People think I developed this audience. No, this audience came with me. And then The Kink also then got new audiences. So that's kind of where I started. And also big up to Kenny Robinson from the Nubian Yuck Yuck shows. I started out in stand-up doing Nubian Yuck Yuck shows as well. So I also had that audience who knew me from that as well. So I would just say The Kink was my most biggest thing, but it isn't where I started at all.
Yeah. But, you know, when you talk about purpose and voice and aligning those things, The Kink was such an important aspect of so many women's lives. And I whenever people ask me, what's the kink? I would say, it's like the vagina monologues for Black women.
but better.
What better? Exactly. Exactly. And so coming from a comedy voice to
Yeah.
this voice of like awareness and social consciousness and Black woman greatness,
Hmm.
Black woman struggle, and
Yes.
Black woman realness.
Yeah. Yes. Because I think for us, we talked just before the show where you were saying, oh, you heard the kink is coming back, right? And it shocks me, like the first.
December 6th to 23rd.
Yes, it's coming back to Toronto. And it shocks me that we are celebrating 20 years of the kink. Like the first performance was in 2001 or 2002, somewhere in there.
Wow.
And I look back now and I can't believe that we were such bold women, young women in our 20s, and just the audacity of just taking up so much space back then when it wasn't cool for us or even allowed really for us as Black women to kind of say, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. And when I look back on it, I now understand how revolutionary that was. But when you're in it, you're just like, nah, man, I'm tired of not seeing myself represented. I'm tired of always asking for permission to speak. And now I got something to say, right? But back then we didn't realize that this was going to create this pathway for so many other Black women to take up space in a major way. We just knew it was our time then. And
it was our time. And it's so interesting that it came about before the George Floyds, before all of this stuff that we're seeing, like we're inundated with these images. These were Black women that was guided by you to say, yes, your story matters, you matter. And I think still to this day as a Black woman, we struggle in so many ways to own that voice, which I read a lot about in Black Girl in Love with Herself. I love that book.
I love that segue. That's why you do what you do.
Is what I do. I'm just learning to do what I do. Again, I'm just learning my voice. But
listen, girl, take your props. Take your props. Because us as Black women, we always downplay what we do. Take your damn props. Okay? You're doing what you're doing. Okay, you're giving voice and platform to other women. Take your damn props.
Thank you. I will take it. And big up to Business Takeout, run by another Black woman named Becky Benjamin. So thank you for providing the platform for us to have this conversation. I was like, I'm going to ask Trey for permission to just go all over the damn place.
That's fine.
There's too many things. And I think about the chapter where you were talking about being loved affectionately by women that don't look like us. And that really, really struck a chord with me because a lot of the soothing that I have received came from non-Black women. And I was mad about that for a really long time.
Yeah. I think for us, and it's something that I'm even trying to do myself currently, right, is being able to accept love and tenderness from other Black women, right? And being able to give it, because we've, and I will only speak for myself, but from talking to other women and women who have read my book, I know there is some sort of pathology that is happening with us, right? Where we are raised by women, Black women who are like, get up, or you don't have time to cry, who are just so in that survival mode, right?
Yes.
They forget to offer us tenderness. And so for me, when I wrote that chapter in the book, I was a bit hesitant, right?
I could feel, yeah.
I was a bit hesitant because I didn't want to say as Black women, we can't give that love, right? I was just saying it's not something that is given freely. And I think it's something that we have to relearn because it's been taken away from us, right? Absolutely. And I recognized with my white friends, they were just so easy to be tender with me and hug me and kiss me and wipe my tears. And my other Black sisters, and me included, would be like, you got this, girl, man, you got it. Don't make this destroy you. Come on, girl. I did it. That's how I was raised.
Yes.
So, that is something that has been really new to me.
Yes.
To be tendered, not only with other Black women, but also with myself.
Yes. Right? Yes. It's definitely a journey. It's definitely
it's definitely a journey. And that's something that I really, struggle with to this day, but I'm relearning, right? That we have to learn to be tender with each other, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
But that was there because so many women have asked me about that or have said that chapter actually really spoke to them in a way they didn't even recognize that they needed that in their lives.
Yeah. I've been fortunate to have, like, you know, you make a list of all the things that allow you to be my friend if you are a non-Black woman. And I hold true to that same list. Like, it's just not going to happen if you say all lives matter when I'm saying Black lives matter. Like,
there you go. And I've said that because in the book I talk about it. Like, two of my closest friends are white women, but they have to be white women who come with a certain level of understanding of what it means for me to be Black and move through the world, right? Yeah. And if it comes down to this, oh, we're all the same kind of bullshit, then you can't be my friend. Because it's a whole different level of how I move through the world versus how you move through the world, right? Right. And then there's even in that there's another layer of me as a dark-skinned woman versus my friends who are light-skinned. I have a friend right now who's in Italy, and she was talking about some of the racism she's experiencing. And she's a very light-skinned woman and mixed race, right? Looks mixed race, but she's Black. Right. I said to her, if they are treating you like that, can you imagine what it's like for me? And I'm glad that I have that level of just openness with her, that she's able to go, you have a really hard time. Exactly. And so I think we should be able to have those kind of friendships to be able to talk about racism, about colorism within our own communities as well, right? And in our friendship circles. Yeah, absolutely. And not to harp on it, but I did this live once with I'm known for having love, sex, dating, and relationship conversations in a different life called Cocktails with LA, The Adventures of a Recovering Sex Addict. And can I do that one next? We'll talk about that very soon. But in one of my lives with this white sexologist and physiotherapist, she says to her physiotherapist, she says, the topic was, why are white women fun in bed? And she said, talk the things them, I told you. And she told me, and the audience, that straight up, it's because of her privilege. It's her privilege that allows her to feel safe to be freer in bed, because she knows nobody's going to do anything to her because the cavalry will come to save her. Yes, there you go. And it's that same privilege and freedom to be that wipes your tears away. And why Black women might have a harder time wiping those tears. Yes, because we don't even know how to wipe our own. We don't know how to wipe our tears, and to be in that and to find the emotional safety in that gives us, like I wrote in the book where I said, I come from women who do not believe it is safe for Black women to fall apart or to be fragile, right? Yes. Because nobody saves us. We've always been saving ourselves. It's something that I had to learn to be like, it's okay to sometimes fall apart. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to say, I don't have all of the answers, all of those things. Yes. So someone is saying, JL Joseph is saying, what? That is so interesting. Buy the damn book, JL. Buy the damn book. Buy the book and get the t-shirt. Because the t-shirt is she might have it. So Rose, don't worry. It's okay that you're late. It goes live right after we do this anyway. It goes okay. Yes. Okay. So I usually ask all kinds of questions, but I also play games about words that stand out to me in researching who you are, or quotes. And because this is too much, there's so much to your life and so much to your legacy, that I'm just going to go back and forth between some of the words, some of the quotes. And that will bring us hopefully to a place of understanding and inspiration, which I already know it will be, because it's Trey Anthony. Hello. Okay. So we were kind of talking about the I'm fine, the overworking of Black women, the strong Black women. But you said something in one of your chapters where you said you were scared of your own weakness. What is being scared of your own weakness like when you were trying to run an empire? That's a great question. I think for me, it is taking the time to rest, right? And also, not only am I running my own empire, right, but I'm also a solo mom. I'm dating right now, and I'm trying to like balance all of those things all in my life at the same time, right?
Yes.
And I think it's so important for us as entrepreneurs and as a Black woman to also know when it's okay to walk away from the business and say, I need some downtime, I need some rest. I recently turned down two really great, lucrative opportunities for myself and my business because I had to recognize this would take me away from me being a mother. This would again have me on the road. This again would take me away from things that actually feed my spirit. And so it's really important for me to recognize when I have to separate Trey Anthony, the businesswoman, and Trey Anthony, the personal person who wants to show up as someone who wants to be in lovership with other people, who also wants to be a good mother, who also wants to be a good friend, who also wants to show up for myself.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So this is something that I really struggle with because I am a workaholic and I love what I do. So it's about recognizing and saying, I need time to rest, sleep, and nurture myself.
Absolutely. It's bringing up for me the idea of motherhood, which is one of the words that I have here. And congratulations on, you're not really a new mom anymore. Now you've been.
Oh, girl, it feels like it.
No, man, you're in these streets. After for, I think it was Teresa.
Who's that?
You had somebody who came to your rescue when you were falling apart one
Oh,
night.
Tricia, yes.
Yeah, Tricia, yes. When I think about, I love my mother very much. But they come from a time where you didn't talk to things them. And let's just be honest. And so a part of it is unlearning motherhood from that perspective and learning motherhood in a new way. And what a beautiful journey you got to go on by not only choosing a little baby boy, but having him choose you back. Go on this discovery together. It's kind of like, well, I don't know what it's like either. So let's do this together.
Do this together. And boy, did we do it together.
Talk to me about learning how to mother yourself and another person simultaneously.
Oh my God. I will definitely say, and I know everybody says this, but until you're in the thick of it, right? Nobody gets it, right? It is definitely one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. I will say without a doubt. Like right now, I feel like every single mother should get like a paid holiday year off. Right?
A week off.
I would. And I think the more children you have, the more time you need off, right? But for me, mothering and then mothering myself, it was so funny that being a mother allowed me to be able to mother myself because I was able to see how I was not mothered in the way that I needed, right? And I will not say that I wasn't mothered. My mother did the best that she could. My mother also had me at 17. She also had a really rough childhood, right? So she mothered in the best way that she knew how, with the skills that she had, with more, with very less, a small amount of resources, right? If any, right? And so for me, it was able to, for me to recognize the privilege that I had more resources. I was also more older to mother, and that my child also was chosen.
Right.
Like that's a whole big other thing when you actually say, I choose to mother versus, I'm 17 and pregnant.
Yes.
Right. True. And so for me, it was about looking at this little baby and also seeing myself and giving to him what I also wanted someone to give to me when I was that age. And, I find I'm very tender with him and I'm much more patient, and not all of the time. Don't get me wrong, because I'm not trying to get Mother of the Year award.
I hear you. Sometimes you are brought the next still.
Right. I should just say, But I try my best to give to him what I know was missing in me. And there's that quote, I forgot what it was, where they said, a lot of times you have children to do over your childhood.
Yes.
And I really do feel I I am reliving parts of my childhood where I wanted someone to give me much more tenderness and patience and
Yeah.
kindness and to see me, right?
To
And
see
see
you.
me and not try to break my little spirit,
It's so true. You talked about having a checklist for your mom at one point, and I
Mhm.
wondered if you have a checklist for yourself as a mother.
Oh my gosh. I do have a checklist. My biggest checklist is really about accepting him and saying,
Mm.
this
What
is who he is, right? Like that's my biggest checklist is to not break his spirit, right? And that's a hard line, right?
yeah.
Especially when they are out of damn control, right? When they are questioning everything and they want to do things their way. Like my son is now 2, and dear
Wow.
God, like, he's determined to do things his way. And so I'm walking this fine line of saying, okay, let him walk through the world and find his voice. But also, how does he find his voice without disrespecting me and everybody in the process, right?
Already in the process. Exactly.
So that's one of the checklists. And one of the other checklists is to just really hold him, hold him in a space and let him be a child. He's a child,
He's a
right? And I think a lot of times, I think, especially those of us who were first born as daughters, and if our mothers had us young, I don't think we were allowed to have a childhood, a
right.
proper childhood. And
Right.
so for me, a lot of times I have to remind myself, he's a child, he's a baby still. And
Right.
so some of my friends tease me and like, you don't want him to ever grow up. And there is a part of me that doesn't, because I want to remember him this tiny and I want him to have every single minute of this childhood in a
Right.
way. And I don't want to rob him of that.
Wow. I love that. And I think you're doing a great job. I mean, Instagram tells you what your life is. Of course, it's so accurate.
So accurate how wonderful of a mother I am on
Yes,
Instagram.
exactly. Based on Instagram, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, okay, let's see what else I have on my list here. I have critical Kathy, the imposter syndrome. Let's
Mhm.
because I want to inspire the entrepreneurs and the people who want to write and that want to run businesses, media, like myself, who wants to learn and to get into these kind of things, like not censoring myself, understanding where I'm weak in my writing and playing on my strengths. Like, how do you deal with critical Kathy?
For me, critical Kathy is naming her and saying, I don't believe you. When that imposter syndrome kicks in. And for me, what also centers me is knowing that other powerful Black women talk about this thing, from the Michelle Obamas to the Viola Davises to the Oprah Winfrey's, who talk about us feeling that we didn't do enough to get to where we got to. And so for me, it's naming it and saying that's not true, right? And sometimes what I literally do, I read my own bio. I literally read
I love it.
my bio and I read it. And I say, girl, you really got a question that you're supposed to be there?
For real.
Like, name another Black girl in Canada who's done what you've done. Just name her. Just name her. And then I'm like, okay, I'm good. Let me go in there. But like I said to you, a lot of times we downplay our accomplishments. And also, too, because society doesn't big us up, right? And that is why, for me, where I'm the most invested
Yeah.
is saying to other women, big up yourself, and for me to big them up as
Yeah.
well, right? Because I don't think we give enough Black women the props that we deserve, right? Because we usually are doing more with less resources than our white counterparts. And we're doing it in such a brilliant way.
Right.
And nobody is saying, hey, look at that Black girl, right? So I'm just like, I'm going to sprinkle the Black magic on myself, the Black girl magic on myself, Black girl magic on me, because I'm like, damn, we did that.
We did that.
We did that with shine and with gloss and with grace, and some of us have the baby on our hip, and we're still doing the shit.
We're still doing it. It's so true. It's true. You talked about the success table in relation to the imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that. And yes, Rose, we have to praise one another as Black women.
We
Thank
have
you.
to. And that is one of the things that I find really essential to me is I don't, and I talk about it in the book where I said how my grandmother used to instill in me, this thing of, oh, you can't trust nobody, don't trust her. And there's this built-in mistrust that we have sometimes of each other as Black women. And that is something that I have decided and been really intentional about no other Black woman is my competition. She's my sister. And I'm going to support her. I'm going to give her space. I'm not going to go, oh, why her and not me? You know what I mean? I'm just going to be like, I was talking to a friend yesterday who I just thought was really amazing. And she said, when jealousy and envy come up, what she does is celebrate the other woman as if it has happened to her. And she goes, that way, there's no room for jealousy. You just go, boy, that means it could happen for me too.
Right.
And I'm like, that's such a brilliant way to move through the world. I call her my little Buddha. That's my friend Tricia. But we were having this conversation yesterday and she goes, that's how you deal with it, jealousy and envy. Because I was telling her that sometimes those things do come up for me. Yeah. And she goes, no, Trey, celebrate her as if it happened for you. Right.
Yeah.
And so, and when the jealousy and envy comes up for me, let me just name it very clearly and be very vulnerable. Where the jealousy and envy comes up for me is when I see other women in really solid loverships and partnerships and relationships, and I feel lonely. And I feel like, when is it going to be my turn again? Or I don't want to mother by myself. I want to come home to somebody to celebrate my successes. And that's when it comes up for me. And I'm like, I really want that.
I really want it too. I want it too, please. But I don't want to come from a place of like desperation because, that can be, I call them thirst traps.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm not falling in no more thirst traps.
I'm not in it. And it's funny that you say that, Ellie, because what has happened for me, because I'm so aware now of my worth and what I bring to the table, and I'm loving myself in a way, I'm no longer thirsty or desperate. And so it's even harder now for me to say, okay, let me find a relationship or somebody I want to sync with, because I'm like, I'm loving myself so well that you better be coming with some real good shit.
Right.
Better.
Oh my gosh. 1,000,000%. This is exactly on the vibe. But I'm learning to let go of the resentment, because it's still there. There's residue from my past.
Yes.
Some of us have fallen into the total compete mode. Everyone has a talent that we can add to the pot.
There you go. And I'm not competing with any Black woman. I'm not. And that's how I look at it. I just say, I am happy for your success. I can't tell you how many Black women I have let into my camp, how many Black women I continue to mentor, how many Black women who have also opened doors for me, And so for me, that's how I look at it. If one of us wins, all of us wins, right? Yeah. So I think if we have that mentality, we can only get better.
Yep, I love it. Okay, I'm going to go into one of my favorite Trey Anthony quotes.
Oh.
It's one cannot discover new oceans unless she has the courage to swim away from the shore.
Oh my gosh. I will say it's one of my favorite quotes, but I did not write those words.
Okay, I heard you say it.
No fancy writers. It's definitely one of my favorite quotes.
One of mine too, then.
I over and over again. But I think if there's one thing that has defined me, and if you ask my friends and you ask my family, I've never, and let me rephrase that, because I was going to say I've never been scared to try something new or try again or reinvent myself. Right. But I have been scared, but I do it anyways. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a person to stay in anything that doesn't feed me. I've never been one to say, well, let me just kind of, just kind of see where this is going. And let me just, I got 2 more years in this and then I'm out. No, and that's me in relationships, that's me in friendships, that's me in jobs, that's me in my life. Like, if I don't feel this is nurturing me in a way that feels really good to my soul, I'm out.
I always ask people the difference between that challenge, that like, that's not good for me, but the challenge of it needs to push me a little bit out of my comfort zone. So like, not feeling like I don't like that, so therefore I'm going to turn away from it, versus like, that's not good for me?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's that thing of, my therapist said this to me once, and this is one of my other favorite quotes, is one of the things that we do too often is that we leave too quickly or we stay too long. And it's
Right.
about finding that balance. And for me, the balance is whenever I start to, I think because I'm such an empath and so in tune with myself, anytime it starts to feel what I call the ick factor,
Yeah.
and it's draining me emotionally to the point that I'm depleted,
Mm.
then I sometimes say, okay, we've got to go. But
Yes.
I also do try. I am a trier and I try to fix things and I also try to make things work. But I also get very still with myself.
Okay.
And I ask the universe and I pray to God and I say, okay, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? You know, who am I supposed to speak to? Lead the way and let me know. And that's how I make every single decision around staying or leaving or trying to fix it, to be like, is this really the path that God has chosen for me? And if
Right.
not, then I don't need to be there.
Then you don't need to be there.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. It's a little bit like mothers, but they're grandmothers, and they hold a really special place in our heart,
Mhm.
especially because so many of us, being the age that we are,
Mhm.
grandmothers become associated with grief.
Mhm.
We lose them. But what remains is what I want to talk about with you.
Mhm.
What did your grandmother remain for you?
My grandmother, for me, one of the things that my grandmother used to always say to me, and I think stuck with me the most, is, you know, you are a leader, you're not a follower. And she would say that to me all the time, right? And she would also say, show me your company and I'll tell you who you are.
I love her already. Rest in peace,
You
grandma.
know, I know that I'm supposed to be surrounded by people who uplift me or feed me. And I also know that I can't wait for somebody to do something, that somebody is me, right? And so I have to be that trailblazer. I may have to be the first to do something. And so for me, my grandmother has, and my one of her biggest things that she also used to say, nothing beats a try but a fail. But if you don't try, then you failed. Right? And so I used to always remember that. And she would be like, just try. Right. And her
Oh,
favorite thing was like, try a thing, man, just try a thing. Right. So I sometimes say that too. Even my staff, I was like, okay, we're just like, go try a thing.
try
And
it, see.
if it works, it works. But um, my grandmother was very fearless in the way that she moved through the world as someone who had a grade 5 education, who was working class. What she has accomplished throughout her life really is just mind blowing for me. And
Yes.
so, a lot of times when I'm scared to do something, I think about my grandmother took a boat from Jamaica to England, knowing nobody. And she left 4 children behind to go to a country that said no cats, no dogs, no blacks on the door. So
Wow.
if she could do that and make a tremendous life for herself and her kids, what am I scared of? Right?
For real.
And I always think about that. Like, you went on a damn boat.
Yeah.
For
You weren't wanted, where they said, we don't even want you
who
here.
didn't want you? And that's where she ended up. So for me, I live with that at all times. This is where you come from. This is the fire that's in your bones and in your veins and in your blood. What
Yeah.
are we scared of?
Yeah. I have this new thing that I talk about called living faithful instead of like
Mhm.
fearless. Because
Yeah.
I don't even want to associate my life with the word fear anymore, because I know it's there, but I need the faith in order to live fully.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I want to live faithfully in everything that I do. And when I heard your grandmother was also a rapper, I was like, this is it.
Okay, at 80 years old, she just wrapped her, took
No,
out.
people don't understand what we're saying. Like, I don't think people understand that the woman has like tracks out. Like, she got interviews, Dread.
My grandmother released her own album. You could look under Granny's Inspiration on a YouTube. And that was 80 years old. My grandma was like, listen, man, I want to be a rapper. I want you to go in the studio. And my grandmother was on Eglinton with her backpack and her 10 CDs and selling her CD for $10 a pop. You know?
At
So
80.
that's where I come from. I come from that hustle, right? I come from the hustle of we are always working, we always have a business, right? And that's the running joke in my family. Everybody has a hustle. Everybody has a business. You could be 2 years old and you're like, okay, what's the business? How are we going to hustle it? How are we going to fix it, right? So I come from women who make something out of nothing at all times.
At all times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Eglinton, because when the kink went from the stage to television, talk to me about that transition and how did that happen? That is wonderful. I've let fear cost me relationships.
Oh, fear, I'm sure she's meant to say it.
I've let fear cost me relationships and a chance at true love.
Girl,
it will block you.
Yeah, fear can make you, you know, it's so funny. A lot of times, even when she talks about love relationships, I'm one of those real bold people, eh? Like, if I see somebody, I don't joke to slide in a DM. Like,
right? You got to go for what you want.
You got to shoot you got to shoot your shot. So I feel no way about saying, hey, I like you. Like, what's up? What are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
So listen, girl, go back and revisit, you know, or watch the page and see if they're really happy with their person.
Because maybe they're not. There's a lot of people unhappy.
Oh,
there's a lot of people unhappy.
I don't want nobody coming for me now saying I broke up their happy relationship. Don't listen to me.
They were already broken if they were able to break it down. But yeah, back to moving the kink from the stage to television and having it on Eglinton West. So I get a lot of people watching from the US. So we got to explain like what Eglinton West is to the people them.
For the people them, Eglinton West, for the massive them. Okay, I'm sorry. The Rex tail came out of me. Eglinton West is where, you know, our blackest neighborhoods were, right? Where the barber shops were, the hairdressers were, where you could get like a patty. You go there for West Indian culture. And so that is what Eglinton West represents, right? They used to call it Little Jamaica, right? Because that is where you would find the most Jamaicans. You would go there. I know I used to go there like every Saturday with my mother, right? My mother would go and pick up stuff. And we used to go to Saturday school, me and my brother on Eglinton West, right? But we would go learn about Black culture on Saturday. And then my mom would bring us to Randy's patties and we would go buy a patty, right? So that's what Eglinton West was for us, right? So for us to bring the kink and set the kink on Eglinton West, it was really essential for me to have that representation of Black culture and also West Indian culture and Jamaican culture, right? And to keep it authentic, to say this is who we are and this is where we are and this is how we're taking up space, and to showcase that on a mainstream channel, you know, and for us to do that. And I will say a lot of times I'm the one who gets the credit around. They're like, oh, Trey Anthony, the Kink TV show. And I will say without a doubt, there would have been no TV show if it was not for Ngozi Paul, who was the co-creator of the show. She came to me with the idea of turning the play into a TV show. And I was very resistant.
Really?
Nope, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Nope, I'm happy with my play. Leave me and my little play alone. I'm good.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, and it was Ngozi who pushed for it to turn it into a TV show, and she continued to push. And even to this day, you know, the Kink TV show is on Amazon Prime, and people talk about how it was so ahead of its time and how the TV show looked, and everybody thought it was an American TV show because it didn't look Canadian because of the quality. And again, I will say that is all due to Ngozi Paul.
Big up yourself wherever you are. Maybe you're going to be on my show next.
I just followed behind Ngozi, but she really was the creative genius and the person who had the insight to say, this is what we should be doing. And I think going back to business, sometimes you need to step back and allow other people to come to you with ideas and also know when it's time to let go of control and say, okay, you run with that because that's your thing. And I'm going to learn along the way. And Ngozi had more TV experience than me. She had more of definitely a bigger vision than I ever had. Wow. And so I just really want to make sure we give people their flowers where it's due, because a lot of times people are like, oh, Trey Anthony, the first Black woman to create a show on a Canadian network. It was co-created. And Ngozi Paul deserves all of those flowers and then some.
Oh, wow. I love that. I wish that you could speak to, what those negotiations were like. Because your character is something else. And I'm trying to imagine them trying to understand all of those little nuances from the language. And
we left one major network, and we were in, and here again is something that I remember very clearly. We were with another major network, and they wanted to be so stereotypical with how the show was going to go. And we didn't know that we were going to leave that meeting and go to eventually work with Global. But Ngozi and I were on that call, and I was just like, I ain't doing this. I'm not doing this show. Wow. This is not me. And everybody was like, oh my God, you're going to walk away from the money. You're going to walk away from this opportunity. And I was like, this isn't how I want to portray myself as a Black woman. So no. And we walked out, and I will say, thank God to Ngozi and Damien, who were the producing team, that all of them said, if Trey says this isn't what she wants to do, then we're not doing it. Exactly. And we were a united front, and we were all like, we're leaving this deal. And then Global heard that we had left this network, and they were like, oh, we heard the week is up. Do you want to come over here? And that's how we got on Global.
Wow.
It's about listening to that voice and saying, this isn't me. This isn't serving me. And I'd rather walk away with my integrity than walk away with $1 million in my pocket and feel like I did not serve my people well.
Right?
That's how I felt.
More of us need to do that. There's a quote that coincides with this perfectly, where you said, all I knew was I had a desire to see my life played authentically on stage. And then I guess ergo on TV as well.
There you go. Exactly. And I did say that quote. That quote I did say.
That was from your book, or maybe your TED Talk or something like that.
Yes.
Talk to me about the TED Talk. Did they approach you? Were you in Atlanta at the time?
Yeah, they did approach me. No, and I was actually in Toronto at that time when that happened. And I was kind of going back and forth from Atlanta, to be honest, if I remember. Yes. But they had approached me about the TED Talk, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't really know what TED Talks were. I had no idea that it was going to be this huge thing. And it really changed my life. That, again, was another thing that changed my life. That from that TED Talk, I got 2 speaking agents, and I started to then do talks. And I had never done this, public speaking before, but people saw that TED Talk, and I got a standing ovation. And I was one of the few. I think I was the only speaker at that event that year who got a standing ovation. And then all of these speaking agents came to me and was like, oh, do you want to join our speaking agent? And you could do keynotes. And I was like, what's a fucking keynote? Like,
oh my God. Listen, this coincides with the one that you said, sometimes the call comes when no one is even calling you.
Nobody's even calling you. I had no idea. There are so many things that has happened in my life that I look back on, and I said, I had no idea my life would go into this direction. And going back to the business side of it, now where I make most of my money now is in speaking, right? And so it's so funny. I can usually get anywhere between $10,000 a pop for a talk, right?
Right.
And I had no idea that there was so much money in speaking, right? But it was something that I was like, oh, I had no idea. And again, it's that thing too of what is available to us as Black people, right? What do we have access to? And how come nobody's telling us these numbers? And how come nobody is saying to us, this is how much you can actually make from a speaking career, right?
Yeah.
And we don't see ourselves there. And so that was something that I think about now. If they didn't approach me, and then if I didn't get that TED Talk, I would have no idea that I could actually be on stage speaking and make money. I had no idea. It's not a concept to me whatsoever.
How?
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like your whole theater life was you speaking on stage and about very vulnerable things.
I did not know people would pay me to be in front of an audience and talk about myself and pay me as much money as they pay me.
Right.
And so that was the other thing. I was like, really? This is how much speakers make?
So do you remember somebody asking you to do a talk and then you saying the price and them saying, okay.
Yeah. And it was so funny because when I first started talking, and don't get too excited, people. When I first started talking, it was like 200, 300, and then it started to go up. And then I was recently mentored by Dr. Venus, right? And I was charging, I think about 2 years ago, about $5,000 a pop for a talk. And she's like, double your talks, double. And I was like, no,
inside?
No. And she said, double it.
You needed her to say that.
Everybody needs someone like that. And she said, you're charging too low. She's like, you have a whole damn book. You have a whole career. And she said, you double that. And I doubled it and people started paying it. And I was in shock. Yeah. And so I know next year, you guys can't handle me because it's going up again.
It's going up. The price. You might see me here today, but you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
What yesterday's prices isn't, no, today's prices isn't yesterday's price.
I had a guest say the exact same thing to me a few weeks ago. It is so true.
So, and it's about knowing your worth. And it's also knowing that I know I'm a damn good speaker. And that I know. I have not done a talk where I do not get a standing ovation. And that is where I say, as Black women, sometimes we have to have those Kanye moments and believe in ourselves, but also have somebody who whispers in your ear and goes, hey, you know you're Kanye, right? You should be picking up yourself. You know you should be charging more than what you're charging. Right. And for me, I didn't have that mentality until I started working with my mentor, Dr. Venus, who said, you are charging too low. For what you bring to the table, you are charging way too low.
Yes. And you know, you talked about your mess being your message.
Mm-hmm.
And when you give yourself permission to show that vulnerability, to speak from that place, it becomes easy for you in a sense because you're almost like getting reparations.
Yes. 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 And for me, it is about being vulnerable, and also being transparent, because I don't think that we do enough around transparency. I don't think we do enough around vulnerability and saying that we don't have the answers, and even transparency around numbers. You know, recently my sister got offered this amazing position, and I said to her, did you negotiate? Right? Did you negotiate? Or did you also, and I will say this, I remember when I was writing my book, Black Girl in Love with Herself, and they were offering me an advance. And I called Elaine Fluker, who got a book deal, as another Black woman, right? And I called her and I said to her, could you tell me how much I should be getting? Because I don't know. I've never written a book before. I don't know what I should be asking for. And not only did she tell me her number, she sent me over her whole damn contract and said, this is what you need to be asking for. Wow. And I think women, we need to have that kind of insight, because white men do it all the time.
Yep.
They look out for each other all the time. And that is why they're able to make the kind of money they make, because they know exactly how much you're paying Bob versus how much you're paying Frank. And with us as Black women, we're like, oh my God,
I know.
Right? And we shouldn't be ashamed to talk numbers and say, this is what I know you gave X, Y, and Z. So I should be in that ballpark.
Yes.
So because Elaine was able to tell me that, I was able to go in and ask for 3 times more than I was going to originally ask for, because I was like, I know this is what she got.
Exactly.
But we don't do that for each other.
Yes, yes,
yes.
Trey Anthony live. There we go. Yes, go and see a Harborfront Black. So, okay, talk about Black Girl, since they brought it up here, and you know, time will be running out. Black Girl in Love with Herself. It's going to be on stage.
It's going to be on stage. It's coming up July 31st and August 1st. I'm going to be in Toronto. It is going to be theater. It's going to be comedy. It's going to be laughter. It's going to be it's going to be talking. It's going to be dancing. It's like, it's epic. It's Trey Anthony at her best. Trey Anthony uncensored. If you love the book and if you loved my shows, it's everything at its finest. Please come out, support, buy the book.
And buy the t-shirt when you're there.
The t-shirts, we're selling merchandise. And I've said this to people, but it's very true. I feel this is going to be like one of my last tours for a while because I'm damn tired and I got a 2-year-old. So if you want to come out and see me at my best, this is the time to come out.
So AAW says, love the fact that you are teaching out here. We have to know our worth. Trust other people aren't shy to tell us their worth. You got to pay a premium to bring talent to the table. Woo! I think that person lives in Atlanta. That's where you are, right? Are any of your shows ever in Atlanta?
Yes, we're actually touring in Atlanta. So after, so please, if you have friends and family in Atlanta, we're doing Atlanta. We're also doing Detroit and we're doing Toronto. So Toronto is first, then Detroit, and then Atlanta. And we just got back from LA. So we are definitely putting Black Girl in Love on the map. You see, this is my producer. This is why.
I love you, Shelly.
Shelly said August 14th is Detroit. Thank you, my producer. You see, this is
August 25th is Atlanta.
There you go. You see, I don't have to do nothing. I just show up.
This is what you're supposed to have. This is what you're supposed to have. Somebody else on Facebook had said something. Let me just see where that went.
Okay, cool.
I love your plays, Trey Anthony. So glad to hear that you are also public speaking. Continued blessings and success. So Facebook doesn't allow us to know the person's name for some reason, but somebody's watching on Facebook and said that.
Thank you. I appreciate the love and support. Thank you ever so much. And
I love it.
Come out and see us in Toronto. We're going to be there. It's going to be a show. And anybody who's come out to any of my events, you know that I come hard and it's going to be an amazing event.
Miss Trey, I need you to come to North Cal sometime. AAW says, boom, the A is in the house.
I love the A. I love the A. I will definitely say I rep so many cities, but Atlanta is very close to my heart, right? Yeah. You know, I lived in Atlanta for 8 years. I love Atlanta. I love that city. And so for me, sometimes home is Atlanta for me. Right. Home is Toronto for me. So it's all of those things. So I definitely am going to be repping the A when I get to the A.
Yeah. Are you going to be there around August 4th?
What's our Atlanta show, Shelly, producer?
25th.
The 25th. So no, I'm not going to be there August 4th. But yes,
okay.
We're near the end. Is that when you're going to be there?
I'm going to be in Atlanta around August 4th to the 7th.
Girl, you need to change your plans and come when.
Well, I'm going to come to the one in Toronto. So.
Well, hey, man. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, as long as you come.
Absolutely. I know we're running out of time. There's so many things that we could talk about. You know, the gentleness we talked about, the power. Oh, you talked about the power of listening to build community at one time. And I love that sisterhood. Thank you, Mike Truth. Big up yourself. I love that name. Yeah, the power of listening in order to build community. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
It's around, for me, the biggest thing is sometimes, and as someone who's a talker who talks a lot, right? That's my biggest skill that I think I bring to the table, is that I know how to talk. But I've also learned about myself is to not listen to respond to what someone is saying, right? But to actually be really silent, let them finish what they have to say, and to also believe somebody when they say, this is my experience, or this is how I've experienced you. Mm-hmm. Really sit with that, you know? And I think that's how you build community, is also inviting people to the table who don't look like you, who don't necessarily share your same worldview, who have a different whole experience, right? And lived experience than you. And I've learned so much. About 4 or 5 years ago, we went up to Nunavut.
No way.
an indigenous community. There was about like 800 people, only 800 people live up there.
Wow.
And it was one of my biggest learning experiences just to hear from that community of what life is like for them. And I didn't want to do this comparison game. Well, oh, as a Black woman, right? And sometimes that's what we do, right? Like if somebody says, oh, this is hard for me, we're like, oh, well, listen how hard it is for me, right? And I've really learned to just sit,
right,
and let people tell you how they feel about something, and not interrupt them, not do this comparison game, not say, okay, well, let me one up you.
Yes.
Right?
I call it the oppression Olympics.
Yes, right? Sit with them and believe them, right? And hear them. And that has been one of the things that I found the hardest to do. Because like I said, from the beginning of this conversation that comes full circle, you know, I was the person who challenges things. I am a talker. I am the person who's like, oh, why? Right? So to be able to listen has been one of my biggest learning skills in order to build community.
Yes, I love that. Now, before I ask you the last question, I want to ask you about, you said my relationship, I had given me a sense of identity and purpose. I feel like this is the thirst trap that gets so many of us. So how did you develop the internal sense of identity, the internal validation that so many of us seek outwardly for?
I had no choice. I was dumped, right? Like, let's call a spade a damn spade. I was dumped. I had no choice. Nobody was showing up to love me. Nobody was posting any damn picture of me on Instagram. You know, they left, right? I was left.
By the way, that's traumatizing.
Oh, trauma doesn't even remotely, and I talk about that in my book.
I know you said they did it over text.
A big, deep trauma, right? And a big, deep depression. And that's another thing that I really feel that we need to talk about as Black women around depression, around anxiety, around suicide, around all of those things that impact us, and violence, emotional violence that is done to us. And we are expected to get back up as if nothing has happened.
I told you she was going to talk the things there.
And for me, that was one of the most devastating experiences of my life. Wow. Because I was so invested in that relationship and what that relationship represented to me and the family that I thought we were going to build and who we were. And I just poured into her until I was depleted. And so by the time then my partner at that time walked out on me, I didn't even know who I was, because my whole identity was her and I, right? As this team and power couple. Yes. And so the one thing that I've learned, and I will say this, and I continue to say this to women, when someone enters your life, make sure they enter your life and they catch you loving yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that you are loving yourself completely, right? And they are adding to your life. They're not taking away, and you are adding to theirs. And never, ever think, and I talk about this in the book, how I was so in awe of my partner, right? I was so in awe going, oh, she picked me. Oh, she picked me. Instead of going, hey, man, you're a big fucking deal too, eh? Right?
Pick up yourself.
You're a big deal too. But I was like, oh my God. And so never let anybody make you feel less than, right? Right. And really and truly, I made myself feel less than. And so that is something that I had to learn to pour into me in the same way that I poured into others, right? Yeah. I've been guilty of that for so long, and setting boundaries, you know. A friend recently said to me, and I told her I was going to use this, I asked her to do something, and she said, no, Trey, I don't think I have the emotional capacity to do that right now. And I was like this, what?
Are we setting a boundary here?
Oh my God, that's what a boundary sounds like. And I recently said the exact same thing to someone maybe about 3 days ago. And I was scared, but I was like, this is going to take a lot out of me. And the old me would have done it and been tired and resentful and be like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Yeah. And now I'm just like, I don't have the emotional capacity to do that.
Yeah, good for you.
And that's what a boundary looks like. And if people love you and respect you, they will be okay with you setting a boundary.
Yeah, I think those are some keys to self-acceptance and self-love, is about setting boundaries. But you said something really important with you acknowledged that you showed up to allow for you to be treated less.
Oh, I did. And I talk about it in the book.
Yeah, the self-accountability.
That also goes back to your childhood stuff, right?
Yeah.
I showed up and I said, I showed up in that relationship as a child.
Right.
I gave her all of the parental responsibility to take care of me, right?
Yes.
And showing up as a grown woman and saying, hey, I'm grown. I was just like, love me, love me, love me, love me, let me take care of me, take care of me. And it puts you in such a state of vulnerability that is not healthy.
That is
And
not.
so when she walked out of my life, I thought I had no worth because it felt like, again, me being abandoned as a child.
Yes.
Right? And so I had to rebuild all of that again, to start over again and say, I no longer am building on somebody's quicksand.
Yeah.
I'm building my own foundation, my own house first.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much. Is there anything that, when we understand thirst to mean that, like when you're thirsty AF, right? When you are that thirsty for something in life, what would it be that you are still thirsty for? What is next for you after this?
Oh, I think what is next for me is I'm really on a journey of peace. And I don't want to even sound woohoo, right? But for me, it's about walking in my purpose and doing work that I love, work where I know God is saying, oh, I put you on the earth to do that. So that's what you do, right? So for me, I'm really in that place of just really listening to my heart, right? And listening to my soul, and also saying, how can I show up in my most authentic and loving, kind way for myself and others, right?
Yes.
Also around being a really good mom. That has become a huge priority for me, more so than I ever thought. But I also recognize in that the only way I'm a good mom is when I also take care of myself. So what's next for me is that also Black Girl in Love with Herself. The TV rights just got bought. So I'm working on the pilot for that. So I'm excited about that. So that's next. I also have another show called Blackmail Baby that just also got picked up to go into development. So all of those things are happening and I'm excited. And of course, The Kink coming back to Toronto, which I'm going to be a part of. So all of those things are really exciting for me.
Absolutely.
And just supporting Black women the best way that I can.
Well, thank you for supporting me by being here with me today. I want to big up little baby Trey Anthony for not waking up and butting down the place. You know,
I said to her, I said, I don't have childcare right now. So if my baby gets up, I'm going to have to pause this interview, go get him and come back down. This is the reality of solo motherhood. You just make shit work. We make it work.
Make it work. Exactly. Well, big up to you, Trey Anthony. Big up to baby Trey Anthony. And big up to Shelly, who's holding it down. Detroit.
Producer, big up to my team. We're 4 of us in my team, but we are small and we're mighty. And they're amazing. So I just want to really big up them. So she said, Toronto, July 31st and August 1st. Buy your tickets. Go to treyanthony.com. Come see me because you know the show's going to sell out. So let's do it.
It is. It's going to sell out August 14th in Detroit, August 25th in Atlanta. And just keep checking back with Trey. There's her stuff right there. Follow her on Instagram.
Buy your t-shirt. Buy the t-shirt.
Buy the t-shirt and support other Black women. Buy the book. That book is good. Let me tell you how I'm not even kidding. I play a lot of audiobooks. So
the audiobook is amazing.
Because you narrate it.
Yeah, because I narrate it. And you know what's also good about the audiobook is that there is an interview with my mom and sister at the end of the audiobook.
Yes.
People really love. So definitely check that.
Get the audiobook and read along with it. That's what I like to do.
Yes.
Anyway, I've taken over too much time with Mr. Trey Anthony. Big up yourselves. Happy Independence Day to my American viewers. And thank you for watching the Cocktale Hour. It's presented by Business Takeout, inspiring Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship. And, you know, if you want to sponsor and advertise on the show, come on down. We're happy to play a commercial for you. Connect with me. I'm your girl, LA Wade. Thank you for watching the Cocktale Hour. And thanks, Trey. You inspired all of us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
If you enjoy our programming and want to help support Black entrepreneurship, please donate today. www.businesstakeout.com/donate.